Hey y'all, happy Wednesday, happy Masterclass day, my peaceful and profitable entrepreneurs. I'm so glad to be here. It is a beautiful day here in Charleston. Just fixing my shirt. I just took Penny for a little outing because it's just so nice and I just want to get out and walk around. So just how are y'all doing today? If you haven't, been here for a while, I go live every Wednesday, and then once a month at the end of the month, I do a masterclass. So we have a playbook you can sign up for. It's not too late, but the information we'll be going over today is in the playbook because I really want you to be able to take this and use it going forward. So today's masterclass is the mindset shift for 5-figure months that you can steal for more cash. So this is something that I have used and my clients use, and I really support them through this stuff because if you know my background, it's accounting and numbers and all that is so important. And some of this mindset stuff is what's really the sticking point, what's really holding us back. And I was planning to start this masterclass with like statistics and some data that I found, and I would still love to share that with you, but I've got a little story that I'll tell first. But I think that is so important to see, like, if you want the data and the statistics, like DM me and I'll share it with you, but we'll start with a story first. And if you catch on live or catch the replay, be sure to, say hello, leave a comment, ask questions. You'll be entered to win a free coaching session with me. So it's something that I just love to do and offer to people. And some of this stuff is pretty personal. So if you don't feel comfortable, like, leaving a comment or leaving a question, be sure to DM me and we can talk there, because I know some of the stuff we're talking about today is a little bit personal. So if you're joining, please say hi. I want to be able to support you. I want this to be here for you today. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. And really, I want to give an example outside of business because I think that is really a little bit easier to see sometimes. Like, I've been in the online space for 7 years now, and really taking those analogies and stories outside of business really helps it kind of hit home a little bit more. So, if you know me and my background, I was an accounting major. I, have done bookkeeping. I started my business 7 years ago and have really supported clients with the number side and now the advisory side. But back in 2008, when everything, with the economy went into the toilet, I went to nursing school and I became a nurse. So I worked in the NICU when I was in Nashville. So I was there, my patients were tiny little babies, like super high acuity, very stressful. The parents are there at the bedside, so the patient, is the baby, and then I'm also, working with the family. And so I had to own my work. This is kind of the mindset shift we're talking about today, is owning your work and speaking to your magic. And, in general, I worked night shifts, so I worked 3 shifts in a row. And after the first night, I would generally leave feeling like, that family did not like me. Those parents did not like me. And it wasn't like a big deal or a thing. It was like, I did my best. I gave excellent care, and okay, the family just might not like me. And I would go back the next night and it would be a totally different story. They would be friendly and, it's still stressful, but it was just a totally different vibe to me. And I realized it was because I showed them my worth. I showed them my work. I showed them that I was more than confident to take care of their baby. And so that built trust, and it helped them feel secure. It helped them feel safe. They were able to go get some food. They were able to go take a shower, go take a nap. And like, they knew that I had this covered, their baby was safe with me. And it wasn't like I just showed up at the beginning of the shift and I'm like, hey, I went to this nursing school. I got really good grades. I've supported this many babies and this high acuity, like, this is how many years I've been doing it. I didn't show up and do all of that. And we'll definitely talk about the strategy piece of this, in this conversation today. But what I did to show my worth and to show my magic and to show my, more than competence was to bake it into everything I did. So everything I did caring for that baby, every piece of education I gave to the parents was showing, like, owning my work and owning my worth. And so that's really the framework I want you to think of this as. Like, we really have to create security and safety for people to buy from us. And that is what's going to create more cash. That's going to create more clients and revenue for you. Because if people don't feel safe buying from you, if they don't feel secure, if they don't feel like you got this, then they're going to go buy from someone else. It's like my daughters and I are kind of obsessed with the Put Your Money on Me song by Arcade Fire. Put your money on me. And so that's what I think of. Like, they need to feel safe and secure if they're going to put their money on you, because people have been burned. I've talked to so many business owners recently who have paid for things that they didn't get the return that they thought they were going to get, and so they are a little gun shy. They're a little hesitant to like invest in someone else. And so if we are asking people to give us money and pay us and pay for the work, then we need to help them feel safe and secure. So that is how I wanted to start this. And this conversation today is very heavy with the mindset piece, so please don't eye roll it. I know it's so easy to want to just jump to the strategy, and again, we do have strategy in there. But really owning our work and owning our worth and baking it into everything we do has to come from within. Like, it's not an outside in thing, like, oh, these people gave great testimonials, I'm worthy, or oh, these people paid this amount, I'm worthy. Like, it genuinely comes from inside. And so we're going through 8 steps today that will walk you through genuinely owning this. And some steps might take longer than others or might feel stickier than others. So really let yourself use this playbook and come back to it and keep working through the things that come up, and maybe spend a little bit more time on certain areas. So we're going to walk through this because if you're not doing the work and you're not really doing this mindset piece of it, we're kind of just putting glitter on poo. It's kind of the best way I know how to describe it. Like, we're kind of just pretending like we feel all the things and we own our magic, but it's really just we're not like doing it holistically from within, and people can spot that a mile away. So, we really want to own our work, and it really just helps us shake off the worry and fear so that we can be ourselves. Like, I don't have to worry about trying to fit into this box that the online space has created. Like, I get to just show up as my authentic business self, and it just gets to be more fun. So that way we get to work in our zone of genius. We get to work with the clients that are just truly aligned and a great fit. So owning our work is just like the backbone of all of this. It's the foundation. So I started, the playbook. If you have the playbook, it starts with a quote. It's not what you are that holds you back. It's what you think you are not. And I just think that's just a beautiful way to start this conversation. So if you have questions, comments, let me know. I know we have people jumping on, but feel free to jump in anytime. So step 1, again, I said there's 8 steps. Step 1 is really thinking about what's the story you're telling yourself. So this is kind of the first thing with any kind of work that we're doing, is really noticing. Even when I'm working with people and the numbers and the data and all that, like, the first thing we need to do is like look at it. So that's the same with our thoughts, like looking at our thoughts. What stories have we been telling ourselves? What are we saying to other people? It's so pervasive that sometimes we don't even realize it. So, just starting with like noticing what goes through your head, like just anything with business. Some examples that I give, when, I started and I was like, oh, I'm just a bookkeeper, or, oh, it's just kind of a side business. Or I'll hear people say like, oh, I only lost this many pounds, or I only make this many, this much revenue. When we use those words and terms and thoughts, like, it's really undervaluing us. And so just really taking the time to listen to the words that come out of your mouth, listen to the thoughts in your head, and just see like, how are you somehow downplaying your accomplishments? And I left a space in the playbook, like, write those out. Like, I literally will have a notebook when I first started doing this of like literally things that I find myself saying that, aren't really serving me. They're not really serving anyone else. So that's the first place to start. So let me pull up my playbook. I just wanted to check and see if there were any comments. I was pulling it up on the other screen, but I don't see any, so we'll keep moving on because there are 8 steps. So that is the first thing. Let me know if you have any questions about that, but that's pretty simple. Simple doesn't mean easy. Looking at our thoughts and kind of starting to notice those is kind of like slowing down the train. I think of like our thoughts as like, a train going by, and like we get to look at those and we get to choose what's serving us and what's not. So really just go all in and don't make yourself wrong, and just be a curious observer in that part. So step 2 is really like, okay, we looked at our thoughts. Maybe some of them aren't so nice. So thinking about how can we be nice to ourselves? How can we be enough for ourselves? And really like taking those words and those thoughts that you said about yourself and thinking like, would I say that to my children? Would I say that to my spouse? And this is where we really get to think about being enough for ourselves, and thinking about how we, can love on ourselves. And so this is the part this step 2 is kind of one of the places where you might get stuck for longer, because this is kind of like a harder, deeper work right here. Something that I love Dr. Wayne Dwyer's stuff, and I have the book Wishes Fulfilled like right next to my bedside, because anytime I'm in between library books or anything like that, like I always pick that up, because I think the first 3 chapters of that book is just like gold. It just talks about being inherently worthy because we are who we are, and all that stuff. So, it's okay if this step feels stickier, because I think that happens to a lot of people, especially women, or, just depending on how you were raised, we may not feel inherently worthy. And so this is where like, this might be like a step for you that really feels sticky, or really feels like I need to spend more time on this because it doesn't come naturally to me, because I was taught I needed to, work really hard, or like I'm an older sibling. I feel like, I've always made the good grades and, been an overachiever, like really unpacking that and working on it. Like, okay, I've always felt like I need to be doing more. Like, I resonate with Louisa from Encanto, like feel like I always have to do the thing. So that's part of my work for me personally, is just like working through like being inherently worthy, no matter how much I'm getting done or how much I'm checking off the to-do list. So feel free to share or pop in, or you can send me a DM if you want to for that one, because I know that one is very personal, and we can really get deep there. And I think that's where the magic happens, is going deep within ourselves, because it really opens us up to so much more. So we're going to move along. Step 3 is really creating your own definition of success. And this is something I'm a huge advocate of. And last month, our masterclass was the strategic planning party. So if you haven't done that, that's just a really good place to start. I can get you the information for that, but it is really about defining your version of success. Like, what do you want your schedule to look like? What do you want to get paid? When do you want to go on vacation and, have that work-life balance? Who do you want to work with? What clients do you want to have? Like, that is what I really think this piece of like not making ourselves wrong and owning our work is, because we are creating the version of success that works for us. So, I started my online business 7 years ago, but before that, like, I loved starting businesses as a kid, like for fun and as a game. But as I grew up, that never occurred to me to do it as an actual job, because no one in my family did that. My mom is one of 6 girls, and they're all incredibly smart. One of 6 women, whatever you want to call them these days. They're grown. But my grandmother, she was amazing. She went to Duke Medical School for, college when she was like 16. Like, she graduated from high school early and went to med school, and then she met my grandfather and then had all these kids, and she still got her MBA and, worked like in addition to having 6 kids. And so I was just raised with just very smart, like, go-getter women, and they all had, 3 letters next to their name. Like, they were, maybe not 3 letters, but, there were attorneys and doctors and MBAs and PhDs and all this stuff. So that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I went into accounting, and all the cool kids at the CPA firm were getting their CPA. So that's what I did. Like, I literally had no like plan to work as a CPA, but it was like, well, that's just what you do. So that's what I did. And then, it's not like I'm regretting having it. It's still a benefit for me to have that, but it wasn't part of my long-term plan of success. Like, I was just literally going with what my family had done. No one had branched out and been an entrepreneur. So like, it really didn't like compute in my mind that that was something I could do. So now with building businesses and working with the clients I do, most of them are parents, really working with them to build the intentional and sustainable business that they want. Because when we really look at what our definition of success is, that is when it is sustainable for the long term. And that's what I'm here for, because especially women or people who identify as women, like, we are the ones that use our money to better the communities. Like, we invest in healthcare, we invest in education, we, give back to the teachers, and we start the food trains and all this stuff. And like, when we have the money, we do all that and pour it back into our community. So it's so important for me, to work with people to have these businesses that serve them for years to come, because that's the whole point. Not the whole point. To me, it's the point of being a business, is to serve you for like years and years to come, not just to like do a business, get in, work hard, burn it to the ground because we're tired, go to another one, work really hard, then burn it down to the ground. Like, that is not what I want to do. And most of my clients, like, it wears them out. So really getting super clear on what your version of success is, because that is what's going to feel good to you. And then you'll know not to make yourself wrong. Like when you see other people doing different things from you, it's like, good for them, you do you, but like, this is my version of success, and really leaning into that. But we have to know what it is first. So there's a spot, and I didn't make this playbook like super long, but if you want to just write in the playbook or write somewhere else, really thinking about like what your version of success is. And again, reach out to me. We can get you the strategic planning party last month. It really is very in-depth, and walks you through kind of these different areas I look at. Like when I start with one-to-one clients, we always start with a strategic planning session, and it's the exact thing that I give them. So that's really where I want you to start, because we're always going to be a failure or not good enough or owner work if we aren't doing what we want to be doing, or we are doing something that doesn't feel good to us. So I think I've harped on that one enough. So we'll get into step 4. Let me take a sip of water. I don't want to rush through this. So I know there are people watching. You're all very quiet, but if you have questions, please let me know. It usually just takes like a first brave soul to like jump in and say something. So feel free to do that. But I'm just pulling up my comments over here. Okay, so step 4, y'all know me if you've been around for a minute. I'm all about celebrating yourself, celebrating everything, like big and small. There is so much research out there. I'm such a like data person. Like I love reading about the brain. And it's so funny because there's just so much out there about like the reward centers in our brain. This is kind of a side tangent, but I have 3 girls, and we really limit the amount of screen time that they have. And then the screen time that they do have, we're very selective about what they're watching. Because I've read so many books about like even games. Like I don't have games on my phone, because I've read so much about like the brain and how it like, triggers the dopamine hit. And even with social media, like I use social media to like connect, and communicate, I'm not really consuming on it, because there's so much information out there about how it like does the dopamine, centers of the brain. And like, that's how we get addicted to phones and certain, things that aren't really good for us. And we can use that in a way that benefits us. So using it to celebrate like small bite-sized goals, like you're giving your brain kind of that dopamine hit, you're giving it that hit that it really likes. And it's like, ooh, I like this, let's do it again. But it's in a beneficial way. It's in a, hey, I just met a goal, let's, reach another goal again way. Like, hey, it's safe for me to reach my goals. There's just so much science out there that like, even celebrating these small wins, and I know it feels silly and people are like, well, I don't feel like I should celebrate yet. I'll celebrate when I get to this point. But it's like, no, celebrate now. And even if it's something tiny, I remember like when I hit my big 10K cash month, like that had been my goal for a while. I finally hit it. My celebration was to just have a glass of Prosecco with my sister. Like she was here in town anyway. We were going to have the Prosecco anyway, let's be honest. But it was nice to just sit there and be like, hey, I met my goal, and like we got a cheers, and it was just so fun. And it doesn't have to be anything big or anything that you're even doing differently, but just setting the intention to like celebrate yourself and like, hey, I reached that goal. And even like with these live streams, like I've been going live every week for almost a year now, but like I still get sweaty, I still get nervous, I still afterwards think about things that I'm like, I should have said it a different way, or I could have said this better. But what I like to do to reward myself is take the dog just for a little short walk afterwards. I don't want to say that word too loud. Get her excited, but that's like kind of my little reward for like, go out and get some sunshine, move around, kind of shake it off. And so that's what I wanted you to think about. Like these don't have to be monetary, like need to go out to a big dinner and spend a lot of money. Like it can literally just be anything small. And showing you that it can be for like me going live. Like, yes, I did the little celebration for my revenue and my take home pay that month, but even some of these process goals that we have, like every week I have certain process goals that I want to meet. And so it's not like it has to be like, oh, I need to book a certain number of clients, or, oh, I need to make a certain amount of revenue, but it can literally be like, I showed up and did the things today that I needed to do for my business. So I'm going to celebrate that. And so that's what I want you to do with step 4 is celebrate yourself and really see what you're doing right. Like I literally have a notebook where I write down things that I'm doing right, things that are going well. And that's just kind of a way for me to remember and celebrate myself and celebrate these little things. Even if it feels kind of silly and you're like, oh, I feel like I should wait till something bigger comes along to celebrate. But if you're my client, you know, that's always like my first question. Like, how are you celebrating? Like, how are you giving yourself so much credit right now? Because our brains just want to like automatically go past that and be like, okay, but what's next? Like, what's the next thing? And it's like, let's just sit in this for a second and like teach our brains that, you know, it's safe to meet goals and that I do what I say I'm going to do, and you know, get all those chemical reactions in the brain that there's so much data out there to support. So we'll move on to number 5. This is really just like remembering that you're human, which as a business owner can be hard to do because we feel like, you know, we should be like robots, or we should be, you know, perfectly like neutral all the time and not, you know, get triggered by anything. And, you know, I really say like being a business owner and being a parent is like the best lesson in personal development, because it kicks up so much stuff that like we may have not even realized was there. Like we have normal fears and insecurities. And the more we just ignore them, the worse that it is. It's kind of like what I talked about earlier, like putting glitter on poo. Like if we're just like pushing everything down, like I'm all about like feel the fear and do it anyway, but like we still need to process that fear. We still need to like come up with what's going on. So what I like to do journaling. I love EFT. If you aren't familiar, like I know I'm a left brain person, I'm a numbers person, and you're sitting here like, why are you talking about EFT? It's emotional freedom technique. It's literally like tapping. There's tons of like really good YouTube videos, and I love it. I can tell a huge difference every time I do it. You know, I found some YouTube videos of like a certain guy that I like that has videos. I can't remember his name right now. But even like if I'm feeling anxious about something, or I'm feeling like, oh, who am I? I don't want to do these kind of things. Like I do a session of that, and it just, I can't tell you like the logistics of like why it works. It's kind of like doing these, what is it? The meridians that run through your body. Anyway, I'm not the best person to explain why it works, but it does work, and there's tons of stuff out there about it. And just try it. Like maybe you try it and you're like, okay, I did it. Didn't really get it, Jordan. That's totally fine. Might not be your thing. Something else I like doing is a fear inventory, and this is kind of similar to EFT. So we're kind of taught like, you know, think positive, and I'm all about thinking positive. But sometimes if we're thinking too positive and we don't let ourselves like feel what's coming up for us, like this is kind of another live stream I did previously, like we're actually blocking ourselves from what we want. So like a fear inventory, just you really list out everything you're afraid of. Like I've done this just because I have such things with time, like being a parent and a business owner, and during lockdown, I have like a lot of stuff that gets kicked up around like, oh, is there enough time? Like, oh, I feel like everybody wants something from me right now. And so like doing the fear inventory, like I literally write out like, I fear, you know, I'll take on too much work and that stuff will slip through the cracks, or I fear, you know, one of my bookkeepers will leave me, and then like, how am I going to handle all this? Or I fear, you know, someone is not going to be happy with their service, or, you know, like literally just put everything out there, and you do it like over and over for a few days. And then it gets to the point where you're like, yeah, I can see how that was a fear, but now it's kind of not really a fear anymore. And that's just kind of the place where you can look and be like, okay, can I set up some things so that I do feel safe? Like, can I set up so that maybe I have more than one bookkeeper, so that if we need to reallocate the work, we can? Or I need to, you know, just have a time blocking schedule, or I know that I'm looking at these certain things every day. Like having the fear inventory, let it all out and let yourself like process that, and then figure out like, okay, what are some things I can do to like create safety around this? So that's, you know, what I like to do. There's also an app called Pause, Pause. It's breath work. I really love that. They have a really good like resentment releaser one where you're like moving your body and you're breathing, and you do look like a crazy person, but I do it alone in the morning when no one's awake. But it really lets me like process things, and like anything I'm frustrated about, you just let it out. So this is where I don't know if any of these speak to you or if you have questions about them, but let me know. But just finding something that works for you, or a combination, like one day EFT might feel good, another day like doing some breath work and big movements might feel good. But really letting yourself like feel everything, because as business owners, like we are human. We grew up with other humans, we're interacting with other humans every day. Like it's just so important to like, honor these feelings and, kind of incorporate these things into our daily life so that we can be neutral in our business. Because if we don't let ourselves feel these feelings and like get all this out or work through it, like it's going to affect how we interact with clients, with potential clients, with our team. Like if we're not letting that go, it's going to be under the surface and bubble up. So that's where I'm like, feel the feelings, write them down, whatever you need to do. There's a space in the playbook for that, but just know that that is a piece you can use on your own. Especially like with the fear inventory and EFT, like, it's just a great practice to put into, kind of your daily routine. So we'll go into step 6. So I kind of touched on this already and I didn't mean to, but step 6 is practice being versus doing. So this is where there's that work where we need to feel like inherently worthy just because, that whatever you believe in or, whatever faith you have or don't have or whatever that is, just knowing like your intrinsic worth versus like having to create or deserve it. So, our job is to feel worthy even if we make $1,000 a month, even if we make $10,000 a month, even if we make $100,000 a month, like our goal is to know that like we are worthy right now, no matter where we are. And like getting farther in business isn't going to somehow make us more worthy or less worthy. And so really like, that's the best way I can describe it is the being versus the doing. And I've done a lot of work with like masculine and feminine energy because I am a very masculine energy. Like I own a business, I'm a mom, like those are masculine they have masculine traits associated with them. And so kind of leaning into more of the feminine, which is more of the being, is kind of like how I think of it. But, you can think about it however you want to, but really just doing the inner work and thinking about like, do you feel worthy right now? And, what can we do to feel worthy every single day? And like I mentioned before, I love that book with, Wishes Fulfilled, and just kind of rereading a few chapters of that. Like that always gets me reminding like myself and what I believe, like to feel worthy. And for you, that might be something else, but whatever that is, like getting to that feeling of like being, I am here and I'm worthy, versus like, I need to somehow earn these clients or this revenue. So that's part of the work of that one. So step 7, giving yourself credit. And this is kind of the piece where I've talked about it being more strategic. And so I wrote in the playbook, and we'll go over these things, but I wrote in here about bragging on yourself. And the other night I pulled this playbook up because I write these master classes like months in advance. So I was kind of like refamiliarizing myself with this. So my oldest daughter, it was past their bedtime and she constantly gets up. She's 7. So she came in and I'm like, okay, last hug, like give her a hug. And she's like looking over my shoulder, like peering at my computer. And she's like, Mom, why are you telling people to brag on yourself? It's like, interesting. Cause like, I feel like the way I was raised, like, and how I'm trying to raise my daughters is very like, strong, independent, that sort of thing. And I didn't realize that she had such a negative connotation for bragging, like already at this young age of 7. And so I can see that like as a woman of 41 years old, like how that's already been like integrated into my life so much, and how so many of the clients that I work with, this is integrated with them, like not to brag, not to like, shine too much. And, her definition of bragging was like, making other people feel bad and saying that I'm better with them. And so we had to have this whole conversation about like, actually you can brag on yourself really healthy. Let's think of a healthy way you can brag on yourself. Like you biked to Aunt Becky's today and you took her the homemade Valentine that you made and you did it and you're really safe, and, working through that. And that's something I did with her because I was like, oh snap, like my own daughter is like, oh, you shouldn't be bragging on yourself. So we have that mentality so much baked into us at a young age. I don't want to say it's scary, but it is very like, this is a huge opportunity to lean into like getting uncomfortable with bragging. And so this is the piece, when I talk about mindset shifts and, making more cash and getting more clients, like it really comes to like this holistic, like giving yourself credit. Like we talked about in the beginning, it really needs to be baked into like everything that you do, and like at first it might feel super uncomfortable. It did for me. But so I say, this is thinking about the strategy piece of this, like really thinking about like, what are things you can give yourself credit for? What are some of the, wins or some of the magic that you bring to your clients and to your work? Like literally write it down in a journal. I leave a place in the playbook. Like what are like 3 things that you're counting and giving yourself credit for right now? And maybe do that every day. Like 3 things that you can give yourself credit for. And really start again to notice those. That's kind of like the first step of this. And even like maybe counting things that you've never considered before. I put some activities in here, like asking friends or family if you need to. Like it's so helpful, like having someone like me, like my clients don't realize like their magic and their beauty sometimes. And then like as we're working together, we're kind of pulling it out. And I think that's just so helpful for me to kind of be a mirror for them and to be like this neutral third party. And sometimes I see things in them that they like totally have forgotten about, or they just take for granted and, don't realize like what like credit they should be giving themselves. And so those are the kind of strategic pieces in here, like writing down 3 things every day, big, small, whatever, like you got a frozen dinner on the table, for everyone to eat, like whatever it is, like really practicing giving yourself credit in all areas of your life, because when it comes to business, like it's going to be so much easier to do. So that's the other strategic piece of this, and kind of the homework that I want to give you is writing some bragging content and social media where you like deliberately give yourself credit, like posts that are just like bragging, giving yourself credit, speaking to your magic. And obviously like I am all about these, posts and doing that separately. And we get to like bake this into all of our content and, our website and any communication we're doing with potential clients or our audience. So having that list of things that you can give yourself credit for and that you can own on a regular basis. Because this is just something that like, I kind of have like a running list of things that I'm always trying to add to my content. Like I'll write a piece of content, do a first draft, and then just kind of go back and be like, okay, where can I, speak to my magic? Where can I speak to my results? What I bring to the table? Why me? And kind of like go back and put it in that way. Sorry, I've got like rainbows on my face, all my prisms in here. So really thinking about in your content, like, yes, having those specific pieces of content that you use to brag on yourself and your results and what you bring to the table, and just making it part of all of your content on your website, any interactions that you have. So let me know if you have questions about that, because I know that's more of a strategic piece that we can kind of like work on together. And that's where I really work, offer these free consistent content for consistent 5-figure months calls. And that's one of the things people and I will work on is like, okay, how are we going to get you consistent? And then how are we speaking to your magic consistently? Because yes, we want to show up consistently, but that's not the only piece of it. Like, if you're just posting like a canned, post, like people can pick that up like a mile away. And so really speaking to why you and owning your magic, like that's what I love doing in these calls. So if you haven't had one, grab one, but making sure we're working with people, because it is like the easiest place to like let it fall to the wayside is to not give ourselves credit and not speak to our magic. Like we can provide value all day and be like, this is what I do, or this is what, 3 tips to help you do this, but really like working in, how we support people and, showing people why us. It's just one of the hardest things. And especially, what's the saying? You can't read the label from inside the jar. Like sometimes we're just so close to our work and just so used to ourselves and so used to our personalities and, who we are that like we forget. Like sometimes I forget, like I know QuickBooks like the back of my hand. Like I can go in and I can be major detective. Like we had this issue with a client the other week where they had multiple deposits coming in and it was in different emails, and they even on the deposit slip didn't even put the total amount. And like I figured that shit out in like 5 minutes and I was so proud of myself. But it was like literally someone else that would have taken them like at least an hour. Like, but I like have my screens up, I know what to do. And so that's just one of those areas that I'm just like, yeah, and I forget that like not everybody can do that. And like, looking at Google Analytics with my clients and their minds are just like blown. And it's just like, oh yeah, I forget. Like not everybody has these talents or, gifts that I have. And my gifts are totally different than someone else's. So, just remembering that. And that's where it comes in handy, like speaking to your family and friends and being like, oh yeah, not everybody is like this. Like, this is where I get to really step in and own my work. So now we're to step 8, which is basically like rinse, repeat, and refine. Spoiler, this is never done. This is stuff I'm still doing. Like, I am still always looking at ways I can, add, more into my content, speaking to my magic and my worth and owning my work. I am still journaling and EFT and doing fear inventories and all that stuff and working through the shiz that just kind of gets kicked up. So, I love the saying like new level, new devil, but what I really come to find out with working with business owners, and so many of my clients are long-term clients, like we work together for years, they renew all the time. But really it's just like new level, same devil. Cause like if we're not really feeling worthy, then that kind of stuff gets kicked up again, or feeling like we need to caretake, that kind of gets kicked up at the next level. So it might be working through the same stuff over and over, but that's where I've seen working with someone one-to-one and long-term can just be so beneficial because they know you. Like one of my clients and I this morning, we were just laughing like about like some of the things that she's like saying, yeah, okay, yeah, but what's next? Like, all this is working, what's next? And it's like, yeah, okay, we just started doing this, it is working, but let's like let the momentum build before we start like adding this thing and this thing, because she gets that like shiny ball, what's next syndrome. So I'm kind of like reining her in, and we're just laughing that like, that's just something that she does. And after knowing her for so long, I know that. Whereas another coach or someone else might be like, oh yeah, let's do the next thing. Let's go down this rabbit hole. Like, yeah, let's throw money and time at this other thing. And so that's where it can be like just so beneficial to have someone that knows you, to just support you in that way. So, but when we think about this work never ending and it's constantly going, like, don't let that deter you. Like, I think as long as we're here, we're a work in process. So let's just like, enjoy the ride and, just make it kind of a fun process. That's what this, masterclass is for. And, why I want you to have the playbook, because I think it's just a fun thing to come back to, and you can do your own iterations of this. You can add things, delete things. I just wanted to give you like a starting place and what I like to do personally, to really own our work. So, when we think about owning our work, we're really creating safety for other people, because that is what's going to help them to buy. But us creating safety comes from the inside out. So we talked about, looking at the story that you're telling yourself. How can you be nice to yourself and love on yourself? We're going to, talk about step 3 is creating your version of success, because that's what really matters, and getting super clear on that. Step 4 is just celebrating yourself, celebrating what you're already doing, giving yourself so much credit. Step 5 is really looking at the fact that like we are a human, we have feelings, we're not robots, we're not ChatGPT, we're not AI, like we have all this stuff come up, and we get to work through that instead of have it hold us back. Step 6 is being versus doing. I am all about doing. I'm very masculine, implementation, but really looking at like the being part first, and then creating from there. 7, giving yourself credit, really thinking of the things you can give yourself credit for, doing it on a daily basis, keeping a list and thinking about how can you work this into everything that you share with your audience. And then, creating those bragging posts. And if you want my eyes on it, I would love to, book a call and we can, support you like that and ideate together. And then step 8 is really just like, keep doing this, keep doing it over and over, because the work never ends. So this was, this masterclass, and I'm just so excited to share this with you because it's something that has been a huge deal for me. And I could really kind of see the floodgates open in terms of work and clients and capacity when I did all this stuff. Because like, it wasn't just like, oh, here's some QuickBooks Online tips. Like, it's really like owning, like, I have built a multi-6-figure business with 3 kids, 1 to 3 kids at home, and working part-time hours and, paying myself really well, and like learning to own that and just let people know that like, that is normal. That is totally possible. Like it doesn't need to be crazy. I like to say I'm special, but I'm not like inherently special. Like I'm unique in the way that I do things, but like my results can be someone else's results. And so that's kind of like why I'm so excited to share all this, and why I love going live every week, is to really like just show people what's possible. And so if you're sitting here and you're like, great, Jordan, that's great, I'm going to do all this work, and own my work and own my magic, but like I literally don't know how to get in front of my audience. I don't know how to get in front of other audience people. I don't know where my potential clients are. Like, that's why I have the free call. I'll be sure to drop a link for it, because that is the step of using this. Like, you can do all this work and own your magic, but like, you need to be in front of people and be in front of people consistently. Because again, we are building that trust, that security, and that takes consistency. It takes micro touch points. It takes showing up constantly. So let me close. Ooh. My husband's home and the dog goes crazy. So that takes showing up consistently, getting in front of your audience consistently, and doing this. This is like, long-term game. Obviously, like, I've done these calls with people and people have owned their work and they've booked clients like just from the call, but that is kind of an outlier. Like, I love for that to happen, and it does take being consistent. That's just kind of how business works. That's the nature of it. Like, yes, we can have short-term results, but the long-term momentum, the long-term, sustainability is from baking this into everything and being consistent in front of our people, in front of other audiences too. So I'll drop the link for the free call. If you have any questions on the replay, please let me know. And then Friday we'll pick an entry to win for the free coaching call. And again, like, if you feel uncomfortable posting in the group, just send me a DM and we can chat, more privately about any of this stuff coming up for you. But it's an honor to see you today, and I'll be back next week. So have a great rest of your day.